Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm glad that you're all here, and for those people that have already subscribed, thank you very much. If you're watching my videos for the first time, please hit the subscribe button. Helps me out a lot with YouTube, and please leave your comments and give this video a like if you like the content as well. In this video I'm going to be talking about the 2022 Italian Grand Prix that just took place in Monza today, and we have quite a lot to uncover here. So going into the race, it was all about whether or not Max Verstappen could continue the supremacy of the Red Bull racing team and whether he was going to run away with it. Now, a lot of engine penalties determined the grid for this year's race, and we had a lot of reshuffling to do in the beginning. So Verstappen found himself down in 7th position, and Charles LeClerc from Ferrari was the pole sitter. Well, it was dry conditions, so no chance of rain today, so we weren't going to have any upsets in that regard. But we had a couple of things that we needed to watch out for. We had the two McLarens in an unusual position of 3rd and 4th, starting on the grid today with Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris. Ricciardo, of course, has been having his news of late, and it's good to see him back up there again, so it's going to be interesting to see what happened in the race. The other standout mention too for this particular race was the qualifying performance of Nyck de Vries in the Williams team. Nick, of course, is a reserve Mercedes driver, but he was in a Williams seat because Alex Albon got appendicitis over the weekend and had to take some time out to get that seen to. So we hope that Albon's all okay and he's going to be back in Singapore in 3 weeks' time. But Nyck de Vries got his opportunity, and when I go through the race summary, we'll find out whether or not he took advantage of that. Okay, so the race got underway, and Verstappen, as I said, was starting 7th on the grid. And the front runners were on soft tyres, and from Lando Norris down they went on the medium tyres. So it's going to be interesting to see what would happen. We had Sainz and Perez at the back of the grid, again because of engine penalties, and it wasn't long before we saw a couple of things happen. In fact, within the first 5 laps we saw that Verstappen was basically on fire again, and he got himself up into 2nd position behind Charles LeClerc within the first 5 laps of the race. Sainz was very impressive from the back of the field. He started to carve his way through on the medium tyre, and he was doing extremely good job, better than Perez. He was passing the back markers a little bit faster than Perez was, and Sainz was having a great first stint in this particular race. Then on lap 12 we saw the virtual safety car come out because Sebastian Vettels Aston Martin blew up again. And shame for Vettel because he's had such a distinctive career at Monza, winning there, of course, in the Toro Rosso. Who will ever forget that particular run? And just doesn't seem to be his happy place at the moment in that green machine, which is a bit of a tractor. So Vettel's virtual safety car started to play around with strategy a little bit, I guess, and Ferrari, once again, they were dubious on their strategic call because they brought Leclerc in for a tyre change. Now, what happened here was a little bit unlucky because the virtual safety car period ended before Charles Leclerc got out of the pit lane. So what happened was he didn't get the full extent of the virtual safety car impact. In fact, he gained about 10 seconds in that process. So the race continued on, and it wasn't until lap 25 that Verstappen, who was leading the race at that time, came in to do his tyre change. And as has been the normal case with Red Bull lately, everything went very, very smoothly in that tyre change for Max Verstappen. And it really looked like it was going to be a procession for Red Bull once again. So Ferrari had to bring Leclerc in again for a second change. They did that on lap 33. And it was a case of could Leclerc chase down Verstappen, who had about a 20-second lead at that stage. But as the laps started to tick by, there was no chance for Leclerc to get anywhere near Verstappen. In fact, after about 10 laps of coming out, he'd only gained about 1 second on Verstappen on his fresh tyres. So it looked like a Red Bull procession was going to happen until the end. George Russell was driving well in 3rd position. Lewis Hamilton had made up a couple of places. Carlos Sainz had moved himself up into 5th position at this stage of the race, and things were looking pretty good for Ferrari in terms of getting a higher finish. And Perez had followed Sainz pretty much all the way through, although he did have an overheating brake problem which brought him into the pits again to make another tyre change, and that dropped him to the back of the field. But Perez started to make his way through the field when the others started to making their pit stops. So on lap 48, Daniel Ricciardo's luck continued. Some would say that it was just the devil looking down on him once again. And on lap 48, his McLaren engine gave way, and he was pulled over to the side of the road at Lismo Corners. And it instinctively made the safety car come out for this particular stage of the race. So it was a bit of a sad situation to see Ricciardo sitting in his car. The marshals couldn't clear the car very fast because it was stuck in gear, and it took them forever to get the car removed. In fact, with only at that stage 5 laps remaining in the race, it was pretty much on that the race wasn't going to restart. Now, I have a problem with the FIA here because for the viewing public and the tifosi at the track really let themselves know, and at the end of this race with a lot of booing because of how the race actually ended. And when Ricciardo's car broke down, it was obvious that they weren't going to move it. They should have red flagged the race at that stage, cleared the car, and then had a restart, and it would have given us 5 exciting laps at the end of the race. That's my opinion anyway. But instead, they left the car out there. They took their time to remove it, and by the time they did, we finished the race under a safety car situation, which handed the race to Max Verstappen. Now, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute the race result would have been different, but it would have made for a very exciting last 5 laps of the race. And let's face it, that's what the fans pay for, both the fans at home and the fans at the track. And to see a Formula 1 race finish again under controversial safety car procedures, it's pretty disappointing for the sport. So I think that's something that the race stewards and the FIA have to look into, because I know that most of the drivers were pretty upset as well that they didn't get to finish this race under normal race conditions. Okay, so let's go through the top 10 as they finished in this year's 2022 Italian Grand Prix at Monza. Max Verstappen was the winner, Charles LeClerc second, George Russell third, Carlos Sainz fourth, Lewis Hamilton fifth, Sergio Perez sixth, Lando Norris 7th, Pierre Gasly 8th, Nick de Vries a fantastic drive in 9th position, and Alfa Romeo Zhou came home in 10th. So as I said, Nick de Vries had a fantastic race this weekend. Extremely difficult for these young guys to get into a car they've had very little running in, and he only had an hour and a half's notice before qualifying that he's going to be driving this Williams, Nick de Vries. So he's done a fantastic job in getting that car to the finish line today. And he bet his teammate Nicholas Latifi quite substantially, in fact. So just going through some of the other notables, Mick Schumacher had a good drive to get to 12th. The Haas was just a piece of rubbish again this weekend, but he did a good drive, I thought, to get up into 12th position. Looking at the Alpines, they were pretty rubbish this weekend, with Ocon in 11th position and Fernando Alonso's engine giving way again, so he had a DNF. So Alpine looked promising. Everybody thought they were going to do really well at this track with their low downforce. Didn't come to fruition. In fact, they would be pretty upset with their performance. Williams, I thought, had a great weekend with Nick de Vries in P9, Latifi in P15. So I think it's been a few races since those two, both drivers in Williams, have been in such good position. So that was a very, very good weekend for Williams. Haas, as I mentioned, P12 and P16. Pretty good, I guess, in terms of where they started in the weekend. Both drivers were already giving us doubt during FP Practice 1 and Practice 2 that they were going to be in for a hard weekend, but 12 and 16 is okay. AlphaTauri, 8th, P8 and P14 for them. Gasly drove well. I thought he couldn't get past Ricciardo when the DRS train was going on during the middle of the race. And AlphaTauri tried to play around the strategy, but that didn't work. They didn't get the undercut on Daniel Ricciardo. So Yuki Tsunoda finished in 14th position, an okay drive for him, nothing spectacular. Going to be interesting to see whether Tsunoda's going to be around in AlphaTauri next year. Everybody's carrying on as though he's a for sure to get in there. I'm not too sure whether he's going to be there. McLaren P7 for Norris and a DNF for Daniel Ricciardo. His luck can't get any worse, can it? It just seems that every news piece that goes out, news bite that goes out on Formula 1 these days, it's about Daniel Ricciardo and something going bad for him. So let's hope the Aussies' luck turns around in Singapore in 3 weeks' time. One of the things I just want to mention about Ricciardo, they stuck him out on the hard tyre again. He's been saying in his post-race interviews for the last few weeks that the hard tyre doesn't work on the McLaren. They put the soft on Lando Norris. They went a long first stint with him. Why didn't they do it with Ricciardo? They left him out there on the hard tyre for such a long period of the race, and then his engine blew up. So some would say, well, it doesn't matter what they did as far as tyres. He wasn't going to finish the race anyway, but he was in a good position. He was probably able to hold that position. But as soon as they put him in the pits, Norris then got past him, which I'm sure was team orders. And then after that, Ricciardo's race came to an end. So there we've got 3 weeks now before we get into Singapore for the next race. And Max Verstappen's got an unsurmountable lead in the Drivers' Championship. Don't see anybody catching him, no matter what happens in the last 7 races of this year's season. He's got it home and hosed, I think. And it's just dominance at the moment, isn't it, by Red Bull Racing? They're just really, really clicking. Let's hope Sergio Perez can get a little bit higher up in Singapore. He usually likes the Singapore track and does well there. And that's what we're going to see. So it doesn't look like Mercedes have found the magic pill yet. George Russell's driving very well. He's out driving Lewis Hamilton, in my opinion. Doing very, very well for that team with that car that they've got, but they're still lacking a lot of speed in the straights, and obviously the downforce in the corners is not helping them at all. So it's going to be interesting to see how Mercedes go when they get to Singapore as well. Ferrari, once again, well, pit stop strategies and everything that happens off the track seems to be affecting them. It's going to be interesting to see whether Binotto is going to be around for much longer. Word on the street and from the CEO of Ferrari is that they have to clean up their act. Let's see what happens in the debriefing of the Italian Grand Prix. Well, that's it for this year's race. We had Max Verstappen from Charles Leclerc and from George Russell on the podium, and hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what your comments were. Were there a standout driver? I thought Nick de Vries got the standout for this weekend. Fantastic drive for the young guy to come through in the Williams and finish in P8 position. So let me know what you think of this year's race. What do you think about Ricciardo? Is he just embracing bad luck at the moment? Is that what's going on? Can the season end fast enough for him and for him to find out what he's going to be doing next year, or at least for him to make a decision? I'd like to hear your opinions on that. Well, thanks again for subscribing to the channel. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked my review of the Italian Grand Prix from Monza this weekend. And I'll see you again in another video very soon. Bye for now.